And okie doke. So obviously, thank you very much for sitting down and chatting with me. I suppose the first question is who are you? Douglas, you want to start?
I'm sorry, who starts first?
If you want to start, whoever wants to go for it first.
Go ahead, Doug.
Well, my name is Douglas Cohen. I'm also professionally known as Douglas J. Cohen. I don't know if I've had any shows in Wales, but I did write a show called Children's Letters to God that might have been in Wales. Certainly the book may be well known to some in Wales. And another musical called No Way to Treat a Lady, which has been done 3 times in the UK, in Leatherhead in 1989, the Thorndike Theatre, in the Arts Theatre on the Fringe in the West End, and also at the Landor Theatre, which is a theater that unfortunately no longer exists, but that was in 2013. So I have had some shows in the UK. I've also written a musical called The Gig, which has been done quite a few productions and workshops in the US based on a Frank Gilroy movie. And Dan and I started working on adapting his piece, Nine Wives, which he'll tell you about. But I guess, if you had to say, what are my big credits? There's another show that I've written called The Big Time with Douglas Carter Beane. And Douglas Carter Beane is very well known, I'm sure, to many people as having written the new book to Cinderella and Sister Act and Little Dog Laughed and Xanadu. So he's a 5-time Tony nominee. So just that might help give you a context.
Yeah, thanks. It's great to be here. Great to meet you. I'm mostly, I started my career writing musicals, but I kind of segued and written fiction, mostly children's novels and novels. And then I kind of got back into musicals very happily. And the thing that I've done that most people would have heard of is I was the co-book writer for 13, the musical. And that's been done, it was done in the West End, and it's been done around, and it's going to be a movie now. So that's exciting. And then I've written other things, but the other thing I'm very excited about is what I've written with Doug here. It's based on a novel of mine called Nine Wives, which is about a single guy in New York kind of humorously looking for love and meaning in his life. And it's now is a musical called The Evolution of Mann. And Doug wrote the music, I wrote the script, and we wrote the lyrics together. And we're very happy it's now getting its 4th production now here in New Jersey. And we're hoping after that it, the word spreads, and it's done a lot. And there's
including
a great cast album.
Wales.
There's a great, including Wales. There's a great cast album of it from the New York production, which was in 2018, starring Max Crum, Ali Trim, who was in 13, and Leslie Hyatt, who you may not have heard of, but is super talented. And so we're just, we're hoping the word spreads on that. We just saw the opening last night. It went great.
Yeah, it's a really wonderful cast. And actually, we can tell you because you will be broadcasting this, what day this week, Rhys?
Tuesday. It'll go up on Tuesday. Okay.
Great. Well, it seems to be official that the Saturday night performance, the 22nd, is that the 22nd or the 23rd? No,
23rd.
23rd Saturday night at 7:30 East Coast time in New York, in New Jersey, will be live streamed, so that your listeners, if they're up at 12:30? 12:30? Yeah, 12:30. That sounds so bad. 12:30. It's a 90-minute show, so it's not a huge commitment of time. Will be live streamed. So you should look at the website for the American Theater Group. And that's theater, THEATER group, for details on that, because they will be released probably Monday or Tuesday of this week, I would think. And that's exciting. And just to piggyback on what Dan was saying, yes, there's a very good cast album. It's on Spotify. It's also on Amazon, all platforms, but it is spelled The Evolution of Mann, Mann. And the reason for that is that our protagonist is Henry Mann. So it's a specific man.
So you touched on it a little bit. What is The Evolution of Man? What is the story? What's it about?
I'll let Dan go with that.
Okay. Well, it's I got the idea for the book. The novel was called Nine Wives, that it's based on when I was single, like 25 years ago. And it's about, I found a lot of my friends really wanted to be married, but would also kind of get in their own way by objectifying, objectifying women, and also like living in this fantasy world that every woman that they were going to meet would be like the perfect wife. And so that's kind of like, this character is very kind of Walter Mitty-ish, and always kind of thinking that everybody he meets in a humorous way is going to be the person he's going to marry. And he kind of he makes a bunch of wrong choices on the way. And by the end, he realizes in humorous and meaningful ways that he should just slow down and take it, step by step, and maybe he'll have a better chance finding his true love that's meaningful.
And just to
Doug should add to that, because he's better at describing my own thing than I am.
No, I mean, what Dan, not at all. But what Dan described was his book. What is a big feature in the musical is at the beginning of the musical, spoiler alert, he gets an invitation to his ex-fiance's wedding. So, and he's supposed to bring a +1. So rather than decline, he sees it as a challenge that he's going to find his perfect soulmate in 3 months to bring to the wedding, to show Sheila that he has moved on. And this is a big challenge. And as somebody said last night at the talkback, it might have been the director, Henry is in love with the fact of getting married. He's not necessarily in love with the fact of finding the right woman. So he has his priorities a little askew. And that's why he has an evolution and why we have a musical.
So what was it for people who have not created a musical before, or, possibly young creators? What was the process of building this musical like? What did it entail?
It's taken a long time. I'm always struck with the musicals I've written, how long they take to get them right. Like maybe you get a first draft of some really good songs right away. But Doug and I started working on this like 10 years ago, something like that, which is maybe surprising.
9, yeah.
Maybe 9, yeah. But there were a bunch of things we had to work through and then discard. The show, the book has a kind of a different tone that is based on than the musical. I'm just kind of randomly picking things. The book's a little raunchier, so the show used to be a little raunchier, and we kind of realized over time, in fact, with this production, with a certain song, it kind of didn't fit the tone of what we were trying to do. So there was that. There's so many songs that get written for a new musical that might be perfectly good songs, even very good songs, but then don't fit the situation. I've always struck, I'll just say one more thing, then I'll let Doug talk. Just how it gets so micromanaged. By the end, it's like every line is looked at. Are these words good in this line? Like, you really don't, we've 90 minutes to tell a pretty long story, and the dialogue has to really do a lot of work to get you to the songs that are going to push you forward. So it's very, in a way, picky work at the end, but fun work.
Yeah.
Doug?
Yeah, no, it's just Dan and I have recently discussed how we marvel at the fact that this has been a long process because it's a 3-character musical. But I think that's why it has taken this many years. 3-character musicals are very hard. I'm not saying that you can coast with a big musical, but if you just bring out people and change the set and have a lot of choreography, you can actually distract people.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing, you can distract them. There's nothing like that here. It's kind of like people that are, aside from quick changes in the wings, and there are some really fiendish quick changes that happen, it's really something where as Dan said, every word counts and every lyric counts. And we were just looking at things and saying, is this really doing its job? You know, we've had it in the show. Just because it's been habitual doesn't mean that it's right. And as the show has evolved, as Dan was saying, the tone of the show is so different now than when we started. And I remember Maury Yeston in BMI, he was my teacher. He wrote 9, as probably many of your viewers know. And he said, when you adapt something, you caress it, you engulf it with love, and then you place it on the floor and you stomp all over it. And what he was trying to say is, like, to do a really good adaptation, you have to respect the source material and you have to be prepared to jettison it. And that's kind of what's happened here. And it's interesting because Dan is the guy who created the source material, and he's been very generous and magnanimous in letting go of so much of that. But that's, I think, what makes a musical worthwhile, because if not, why have this separate entity, right? Why not just read the book?
Yeah, well said.
And you should too.
Thank you. Feel free to read the
And
book.
that's also on Amazon.
If you can find it, yes.
The 9 Wives.
Yeah, well, it's a whole experience.
Exactly.
So what was it like then, having created the book and then working on the adaptation? What was that process for you like?
It was a fun one, you know. I thought, well, the book was called 9 Wives, and my conceit for it, that's one of the things we had to work through. It's kind of answer to your first question. In the book, there's 9 chapters, and every chapter is named after a different woman that this guy has some fantasy about being in love with. And, you know, there's a plot that goes through it. But we realized, we tried to keep that in the musical and realized there were too many wives. And one person, the first time it was produced, the show was called 9 Wives. And I think a producer's wife said to him, who told me, why isn't it should be called 3 Wives? There's basically 3 women. And that irritated me at the time, but she was right. And so we got rid of that conceit. But, you know, I saw it as a musical because I thought it would be a cool thing. You have your one lead and then one woman playing all 9 wives. But we've kind of kept that, except it's one woman. She's not playing 9 wives. She's playing 3, which is still a pretty heavy lift for that actress.
Actually, she's playing 4 now, right?
4. Oh yeah, because she's playing.
Yeah.
She's playing 3 main characters and other little bit things. And then, you know, if I can pay my collaborator some compliments, it's like, if you're working with a guy like Doug, and when I worked on, you know, it's a great experience if you're working with somebody you like, who's talented. And I just always felt like the show was getting better, was fun. I always felt there was something there, you know, so it made it fun.
And what also happened was the other character was his best friend, Glenn, right? This is the character in the book. And after we did our world premiere at Oklahoma, Lyric Theater of Oklahoma, we were encouraged to look at that part again, and we changed the part from Glenn to Gwen. So Henry is now living with his best friend, Gwen, who is a lesbian, estranged from her wife. And so that was always the case, was that Glenn was also estranged. But it made for an interesting dynamic to have a straight character, best friends with a gay character, roommates, and having them learn from one another, and having this sense of, yeah, sure, they're of opposite gender, but they have different, you know, needs and wants, and it's going to be platonic, but there's a great love affair going on between these 2 people. And this other character, Gwen, now plays about 4 or 5 other people. So the only one who plays himself and is consistent throughout is Henry. So it does make it for a very magical evening to see these 2 women morphing into all these different characters. Anyway, it's fun. It really is.
Yeah. So what's next for the show? What are the plans for the musical? Anything you could share?
Well, it is being licensed through Concord, which is the biggest licensing house. It was Sam French, and now it merged with so many others like Rodgers and Hammerstein, etc. That we can't give you the specifics, but there is another major production coming up next year, further away from New York. But we're very excited because it'll represent a West Coast premiere of sorts. So that's nice. And we're just hoping that the more the show gets on, the more theaters will realize what's so great about the show. And I'm sorry to be, I'm not trying to sound boastful, but you know, a lot of shows, the big show that's a small romantic musical is I Love You, Perfect, Don't Change. Mm-hmm. And that is a review. And it's a great review and it's surefire, and I know people love it. But I think our show is really special in that it truly is a book musical, and it's economical. A lot of theaters are just starting to put their toe in the water because of what's transpired with the pandemic. And so it's very economical for theaters to produce and very crowd pleasing. And you see 3 people, but you feel like you've seen a cast of 12. It's kind of similar in that way to No Way to Treat a Lady, which also had this one woman play 5 roles, and the killer dons these disguises, so he plays 7 or 8 roles, something like that. So these little musicals that have scope are very potent, and I'm hoping that people will gravitate towards musicals that they may not know, but that have the ability to be real crowd pleasers.
So, so final question is, where can people stay up to date to the show? Where can people find you and follow the show?
Well, where people can, I didn't quite hear. People can find me. I have a website, and I would love people to. I should keep it updated more often, but it just says what I've done and the books I've written and the shows I've done, and it's Dan Elish, my name, DANELISH.com. So that's easy. And I'm working on a couple of books now. Doug and I are working on, we've been working on another musical, and hopefully, that will turn into something. We'll see. And just, keeping my nose to the grindstone and seeing what happens.
And so the musical has social media?
I'm sorry?
I'm sorry?
The musical, where can they find it on Facebook? Is it on social media?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead, Doug.
Well, first of all, we have a separate website. I have a website as well, Douglas J, just a J, Cohen, COHEN.com. Which tells you about a lot of things that I've been up to, and gives you the ability to hear samples of my work. But we have a separate website for the Evolution of Mann, and that is the Evolution of Mann, MANN, musical.com. And that has, press, all about, media, store. And the store is there to sell sheet music. And I don't know if people, if these songs have crossed the pond. I assume they have, but there is a song from the show called It's Only a First Date, which is starting to gain a lot of traction. And the Unromantic Things is also gaining traction, as well as She's My Wife and What's the Matter with Henry. So people looking for, and everyone always is looking for good audition material, should really make their way to this website, the evolutionofmanmusical.com, because we have some really good songs that are popping up in auditions, and people, I know recently I got this email from someone who said that someone sang It's Only First Date and got into Juilliard. And I was like, really?
Well, I didn't know that.
Yes, Juilliard.
That's cool.
And then somebody else said, he runs a school here in New York, and he said, man, I just heard your song. It's awesome. And now he's considering doing the whole show. I'll tell you about it sometime, Dan, with his kids. So, it's like, that's the way word spreads. So please check out the Evolution of Mann, MANN musical.com, and you can better familiarize yourself.
Okie doke. So I said it at the beginning, but thank you very much for taking time out to sit down and chat. I will put all the links in the description of the video so people can, follow the page, go to check out the website. But yes, thank you very much, and I shall speak to you soon.
Yeah, this is a real pleasure, and I apologize again for being a couple minutes late. I really do.
No problem.
Not my style, but no, it was a pleasure to meet you, and thanks for helping. Just chatting.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay, take care. Hope our paths cross one day.
Yes.
Hope so.